Hello, everyone. Welcome. It's episode 4 of A Safe Space. Holy cow, 4 episodes. I can't believe we're still doing this. That's kind of like, well, I do want to talk about that too. Because first let's start with how I want to start every episode is let's talk about wins. If anybody is watching and wants to share some wins for the week, I'm just going to remind everyone how important celebrating and acknowledging wins is. It is very, very important to do. I have a note on my phone that I just add all of my wins to. And when Ben and I have a big one, we go outside and we celebrate and we cheers and we say, excellent job. And it is so important to do that because you really need to acknowledge when you're doing good stuff. You know what I mean? If you don't do that, then there's a chance that you don't even recognize that you had a win. I started working with a friend of mine about a year ago, and her thought was, I'm not enough. And so we started working on that thought, and she has, in 1 year, single-handedly, with her boyfriend, changed their entire house. It was something that was a goal of hers that she didn't think that she could achieve. And once she started thinking, actually I can do whatever I want, and acknowledge the little wins, all of a sudden they have revamped their flooring. They've repainted the entire townhouse. The two of them came over last week and I couldn't believe the excitement between them. It was so exciting. This is really, really important stuff. So I'm going to tell you about my win. And as you're watching, I would love it if you would share in the comments about some wins of yours. So here's mine. I started doing this show like a month ago, I guess now. And on my very first show, I reconnected with a friend of mine. And we have been sort of kind of just hanging out on Zoom recently because we haven't seen each other in forever and we wanted to catch up and I'm practicing thought work and coaching and all that stuff. And we realized that we both have the same thought. And that is, I make people uncomfortable when I'm angry. I do not feel comfortable with the way that I show anger. I think that I get very dramatic. I think that I get very over the top. I have gotten lots of criticism about this in my life. I get a little bit sarcastic and bitchy sometimes. And I don't like that about myself. But I don't think that thought serves me because like we've been talking about now for a while, when you feel better about yourself, actually what's true is you take better care of other people. And that's a really hard thing to think. I'm just going to keep teaching this point, I think, because it's really tough. You think that what will happen if you do whatever you want to do all the time is that you would sit on the couch and you would watch Netflix all day and eat and drink. And that's not actually what's true. What's true is if you feel better about yourself, you actually take better care of others. I don't know if anyone saw my posts this week about catching my nephew. I used to think that I was clumsy, and so I dropped stuff all the time. And then one day I said, I don't want to feel this way anymore. Let's look at this a different way. How could I see this differently in a way that would benefit me? And I actually decided that what I was going to do was to love that about myself. Let's get curious. Why do I drop stuff? What's going on? And so I just looked at it a lot. And then all of a sudden, one day, I noticed that, yes, I drop stuff, but I always catch it. It's crazy. And so once I made that realization, I realized that this could be a superpower of mine. My hand-eye coordination is just real good. That's all it is. And so I catch stuff. And because I had that thought when my nephew fell out of the air, I was able to catch him because I have no drama. I wasn't thinking, oh, I let things fall all the time or I drop things all the time like I used to. What I was thinking now was like, I'm really prepared and I'm really good at catching stuff. My hand-eye coordination's awesome. And so I flew across the room, per my sister, and caught my nephew in the air. And that is because I trusted myself because I was calm. Actually, when you're calm and you trust yourself, you will take better care of others. You will catch your nephew out of the air. But I digress. The point is to take better care of yourself, because when you take better care of yourself, you take care of others. So I really wanted to look at anger. And I'm talking to my friend, and he's saying that he also is embarrassed of how his anger shows up. And so his way of handling it is to not deal with it at all. When he feels himself getting angry, he goes away. And how do you show up when that happens? Like, if you think, now I have an emotion I have to leave, I mean, that can't be the solution, right? Because then you're just leaving all scenarios and you're not learning anything. You're not getting curious. You're not problem solving. So actually, if you think to yourself, and this is what I've decided to do, this is my win this week, is I decided that the way I show anger is safe and it's fine. I don't hurt anyone. I don't hurt myself. I just get really loud and really bitchy. And yes, sometimes that makes people uncomfortable. But the win of this story is that I went back after I got very angry this week and I talked to my friend about this and I said, what would you do? And he said, I would get really sarcastic. If the teacher said to me, all right, you got to do CPR on this baby now, I'd be like, oh, I do? Oh, I have to? Okay. Okay, cool. And when he said that, my reaction was, that's fucking hilarious. If I was in his class, I would be thinking, God, I love him. And that's when I realized that's me. I have the ability to say, how about I just let myself be sarcastic? And the people that I hurt their feelings, that's on them. If they want to talk to me about their feelings, great. I am all about your feelings, but it doesn't have anything to do with the sentences that I have said. One more story. I told this story to my husband last night. I think this is a really good point. When I was in college, I got a very, very bad reputation of being like the bitch, or elitist is another word that I've heard a lot. And that was not my intention at all. What actually was happening was I was trying to find my independence. I wanted to learn how to be an independent woman, and that's what I did in college the first time. And all of my friends wanted to be on Broadway. And that's wonderful and great. But I just realized last night that that is not why I went to school the first time. I went to school because I wanted to learn how to pay bills, because I wanted to learn how to own a car, take care of a car. My first 2 cars exploded, literally exploded. Why, you ask? Because I did not get oil changes. That's something that you have to learn. It took me 2 cars. But this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to learn how to be an independent person. And that was my driving force. And unfortunately, when I showed up that way, it told other people that I didn't want to be in that group with them. It really divided me and separated me from them. And so I'm really taking another look at this. And I think that this is really, really important to talk about. So my win for the week is I am going to allow myself to be mad. I'm just going to let it live in my body and get curious. I'm not intentionally trying to hurt anyone. My intentions are pure, I promise you. And as long as that's true, we can talk about whatever happens as a result. If you want to talk about your feelings about something that I said, please, let's do that. I'm so here for it. But I have to be genuine and I have to be myself. And the best way to do that is to just allow everything and not judge yourself. Because when you judge yourself, you resist things. Ugh, it's a whole big thing. Okay, that's enough of that. So that's my win. I would love to hear about your wins. Please comment and let me know anything that you want to tell me. Celebrating is so important. I don't have to say it again. Okay, so here we go. Now we have a very special guest today. Her name is Jessie Pearson. She is my baby sister. Let's actually, while I'm introducing her, let's bring her on because it takes a second sometimes. I'm so excited. Oh, that was so fast. Hello, Jessie.
Hello.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you here. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm so glad we practiced. That was so easy.
Yeah, rehearsals are important too.
Yesterday it was very hard.
Yeah, that's why you rehearse.
Yeah.
You go through all the sound checks and all that stuff, and then you feel better afterwards.
Yep.
So Jesse, would you introduce yourself, please? I don't want to introduce you for you. I think that women should speak for themselves. So can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, give us some background?
Yeah. So I'm Tyson's sister. I'm 33 years old. I am what you call a functional architect for a data science and technology firm. I don't expect anyone to know what that means.
Even me.
I'm still figuring it out.
Right? She's a transponster.
He's a transponster.
Just like just like Chandler. That's what she does, right? You're a data processor.
So, close enough.
Right?
Sure.
You don't look at data and then analyze it and then tell the medical companies what to do with that information?
Sometimes.
That's how I explain it.
Sure.
That's not true. Okay.
No, we can take this offline.
Okay. How about math? That's another thing I say.
Sure.
You
can just say math.
Okay. All right.
That's not wrong.
We're spending too much time on this. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Anyway.
So I'm on here because I recently had a baby. So I had the lovely experience of being pregnant during a pandemic. So a little bit of background. So when I met my husband 5 years ago, he had 3 kids, 2 of which were autistic, but they all lived in Michigan with their mother. So, when I was deciding whether or not this was, the thing that I was going to do, I thought, what's the worst case scenario? So I'm going to have, I'll have a relationship with these boys. They'll probably be here a couple of weeks in the summer for Christmas. I think I can do that. Well, due to some unforeseen circumstances, 9 days before our wedding, my husband and I got full custody of these wonderful boys. So that was 2 years ago, 2 Augusts ago, so almost 2.5 years. And I've always known that I wanted to have a baby, and it was hard to decide to do, given that we had 3 boys, 2 of which had special needs, but that's not a reason not to do it. So I did it anyway. And my husband and I found out that we were expecting on January 7th of last year. So just hit our 1-year anniversary of that. And then the pandemic hit like a month later. Yeah.
Right? Like
yeah.
Pregnancy, yep. COVID.
Yep.
Yep. How did that feel?
I was not afraid of COVID. I work a very flexible job. So the moment the pandemic hit, they sent us all home and told us to stay home. So I didn't have to, I wasn't a nurse. For instance, I didn't have to be out. All of the boys were home from school forever. And so I didn't feel like they were bringing germs home. So the COVID part wasn't scary from a disease standpoint.
Okay. And I want to ask you this, we didn't talk about this yesterday, but I'm so curious. My thought would be, how am I going to give birth in a pandemic? Like, will I be safe? Will I be able to have my husband and my mom? Will I get COVID when I'm in the hospital? Will my baby be in danger? Like, did any of that, were you thinking about that at all?
It was so early for those of you that have been pregnant, I didn't really believe I was pregnant for a very long time. Even once I was showing, it was like, sure, a baby's coming out. Like, I'll believe that when I see it. So no, I wasn't really afraid of any of that. They did, they were allowing spouses in the rooms. But I also have you and mom. So, right. My mother and my sister are both labor and delivery nurses. They both work in a hospital. So I kind of knew what was up in the world of women having babies in hospitals.
That's true. I didn't think
so. So I never had to wonder, because I always had your stories to tell me what was happening.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. So you decided that you found out you were pregnant, and then the pandemic hit. Then what were your thoughts?
Yep. So I think, my first thought was, I can't believe the children are home from school for an extra week. So the way that this looked originally was that spring break was happening whenever it was happening, and the pandemic really kind of got off the ground. People started paying attention to it about a week before that. So they said, we're sending the kids home a week early. Spring break is going to be 2 weeks long. And I thought, shit. Like, I can't do this.
2
I am. No, they're going to be home for 2. They're not going to go to school for 2 weeks. Are you kidding me?
How pregnant were you now during spring break?
2.5 months.
Okay. How you feel?
So I also had the thought, I'm hormonal. And that is a bitch of a thought to put in a woman's head.
Sure is.
I constantly wondered, is this a thought that I should take seriously? And I said it was my friend Max. I said to him, I can't tell which of my thoughts are real and which are just kind of hormonal and crazy and dramatic. And he said, I think you've always had that problem. I think that all your thoughts are just still your thoughts. Because I had this idea that when you're pregnant, you're crazy. And you're having, you yell at your friends and you yell at your husband and you're weird. You're in a weird space.
Was I
but
like
it's just
that?
No.
Where did you get that thought?
Probably friends.
Friends. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. You know that when Phoebe just starts crying for no reason?
Oh,
so
Friends the show.
Yeah, Friends the show. Yeah, no, television is where I got that thought.
Okay. That's cool. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Good to acknowledge. Okay.
Yeah. And so, my baby's crying. We're going to go get him.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
The magic
We
of
have-
live theater.
We have house guests, and so my husband's very busy entertaining.
Aww.
So we have to go get the baby.
Well,
yeah, so I thought that for sure was, I don't know how we're going to do this. It sounded very scary. But I also had the thought that I was completely alone. Because in a pandemic, your friends can't come over. That was one thing I was worried about was, is anybody going to be able to come visit me, visit the baby? Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's all right. Do what you got to do. You're a mom.
I am.
You're in a safe space. And we get to see Avery now, which is the best news. Avery Burke! Oh, God.
Okay.
Avery Burke, my namesake. Hi,
This
Avery.
is the one that Tyson caught.
I caught him in the air.
She did.
Look at him. He's not crying.
No, because he heard me.
Oh. He was like,
His
Mom,
plan worked.
everything's fine.
Yeah.
Look at his face and his hair. I can't with his hair. It just kills me.
All right.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry, we're ready. We're back.
All right, we're back.
Yes. So I had the thought that I didn't know what are my feelings and should I pay attention to them and are they real and all that. And so I didn't allow anything, which I didn't know was a thing until you and I talked about it.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing was just feeling like, pregnant. I was only going to do this once. We already have, now 4 kids. I don't think 5 kids is in the cards for financial and other reasons. And I was so excited that, pregnancy is such a public experience. You're getting bigger. And
I've heard that
your
before
friends
from people.
Yeah. Yes. Like your friends are saying, oh my gosh, look at you. Like you've got, they want to touch the belly and they want to be part of it with you. And I feel like I did it. I don't feel like anyone saw me pregnant. I didn't have a baby shower. I didn't do any of that.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that I feel like one of the joys of having you as a sister is not only are you a mom, but you're a nurse. And so I can, it kind of makes sense for me to text you, hey, my baby's constipated. What should I do? But generally speaking, that's not a thing I would text my friends.
Right.
But it might be something that comes up if you go for a walk or if you go to happy hour, or like there's this aspect of community parenting that I just really feel like I was going to miss out, and like being pregnant. Yeah. Like I have this, I think it was you that taught me what heartburn was.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't.
You described it in such a different way than I've ever heard it described before. And
really?
So you couldn't get diagnosed because you weren't using the words that everyone uses.
Yeah.
But you're my sister. And I'm a nurse. And so I was like, oh, this is what it is. And then it was taken care of.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
But that's the thing is I wasn't out with my friends saying, oh, I have this weird pain. And then somebody said, oh, that's, that's heartburn. Like, it just wasn't, I didn't have my tribe. And I have worked really hard to cultivate a group of women out here that I love and I respect. And I so wanted to go through this with them. And I don't feel like I did. I feel like I went through it by myself.
Yeah.
Which I recognize now was my choice.
Right.
But I definitely had the thought, I'm doing this alone. And as a result, I mostly did it alone.
Yeah. Me too.
It was a pain. I wish that I hadn't done that.
Me too. I totally get it. I totally get it. I mean, it really wasn't until I wrote down my pregnancy story that I really, really digested the fact that I wanted to do it by myself because that's what I thought I had to do. Right. And so I found evidence of that everywhere. When someone said something rude, oh, they don't want me to be pregnant. They don't want me to have this baby. When, mom would get mad at me or something, you know what I mean? I was like, oh, I'm just doing this all by myself. And that became my MO. And I pushed a lot of people away because of that thought.
Yeah.
And you're right. I feel the exact same way. Like, I wish that I had realized, like, look, I mean, you moved in with me after I had a baby. You know what I mean? I mean, you resisted it as much as you possibly could. And then he came and you were like, yeah, no, gotta live with you. And we got a townhouse. You know what I mean? I mean, it changed everything. And now Tyler and you have a bond that not many aunts and nephews do because you were there for the first 3 years. But I was saying, I'm doing it all by myself.
Right.
And that's not what was true. My sister moved in with me. My sister was taking my child to daycare in the mornings because I had to be at work by 7. And so she would wake up and do mornings. And I'm going, no one's helping me.
Yeah. Because it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't, I mean, one of the things as I was preparing for this, I realized that I've Zoomed with Dad more during this time. And I think it's because I have this thought in my head that I'm not going to Zoom with my friends that are here because we're waiting. It's like, I'm mad that I can't see them. It's frustrating. COVID sucks, whatever. But COVID's not the reason I'm not talking to Dad. And so may as well call Dad.
Right.
Like there's no anger around it. And so Dad and I talk once a week.
Right. Well,
and
I'm going to do an episode on this, on COVID, like in general, because it's so hard for people to acknowledge that good things came out of COVID because such terrible things happened.
Right.
And so you've heard me say before, when I say, I think COVID's the best thing that ever happened to my family, to art, period.
Right.
I think it's the best thing that ever happened to art. And there are a lot of people that would disagree with me.
Sure.
But look at what we are being forced to create. And what is that teaching you as a result? Like, oh, if I can't be on Broadway right now because it's dark, how about I have a friend, Brandon. I'm going to call him out because everybody should watch him. Brandon Parsons works at Howl at the Moon with Ben. He's amazing. And literally like 3 months before COVID hit, he decided that he was going to make a piano show on Facebook Live. And so that's what he did. And he beat everybody. And his sets are ridiculous. His sound is ridiculous. His lighting is ridiculous. He's doing such good stuff. Every time I log on, there's like 300 people watching him. And they're tipping him to play like, Sweet Caroline or something ridiculous. You know what I mean? But that only happened because we got curious about something. And what COVID has done is absolutely forced you to get curious. And when you are forced, sometimes you go, oh, wow, actually, I can do this.
Yeah.
What do you know? Isn't that intense?
Yeah.
So.
And, I think I would have been, feeling isolated, especially since he's been born. I would have been home anyway. I mean, I was sleeping 2 hours at a time until last week.
Right.
So
how is this any different?
I don't think it is. And, my therapist said to me, so I had a lot of anger at the boys.
He's just so distracting and cute. But
So I was really mad at COVID and, you know, everything, because my stepkids were home all the time, and I was always mad at them because I would be trying to have a quiet moment with Avery or something, and they would come in and, you know, want to see him, want to talk to him, get in his face, you know, whatever it was. And my therapist said to me, I feel like you have the thought in your head, if the boys weren't here, if the boys weren't around, I wouldn't be missing anything.
Mm-hmm.
But as a result of the kids being there, you think that you're missing all this time with him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's just the idea that there is a way to have an infant and not miss stuff is wrong. You're tired and you're figuring out how to keep a human alive, and that's terrifying.
Right.
And you're thinking about going back to work, and that's terrifying. And like, you're gonna miss stuff.
Well,
So,
and now you're talking about mother guilt. Like,
yeah.
When have you ever in your whole life said, I need to do every single thing in this realm perfectly and all the time? Like, you don't do that unless you're a parent.
Right.
And you're like, I'm going to screw this kid up. I better do this right. And the way that I know how to do that is to be around him all the time.
Yeah.
And when I'm not around him, I'm a terrible mother.
Right.
Period.
If I'm not engaging with him, his brain won't develop right.
Yep. Yes. Absolutely.
That's a new one of, we can do an infant in a pandemic episode, but he's not going to daycare because it's a pandemic and I don't want to send him to daycare. And so I think when I'm on a conference call, his brain is melting.
Right.
You know, no one's talking to him right now. And as a result, he's going to be an idiot when he grows up because I didn't stimulate his neurons.
Right. I know. Isn't it sad what our brains do to us?
Yeah.
Now, do you notice those thoughts differently now than you did a year ago when we started this?
Yes.
And
yeah, I mean, just noticing them is very helpful.
I agree.
Because when I notice them, I can realize that maybe that's not what's going on. I can at least acknowledge that they're probably coming from a place of fear or something.
Yeah. Well, and I think it was Mr. Rogers that said, if you can mention it, you can manage it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like my whole theory is like, that's why you're in a safe space right now. That's why I created this, is because first of all, you have to feel safe to say the sentences in your brain. I talk to a lot of people who have sentences about their children and their spouses, especially, that they think mean something terrible. Mm-hmm. One I heard recently was, my wife is never on my team. And that, number one, that thought doesn't serve you. Mm-hmm. But also, number two, like, what are you doing to yourself by going through thinking all the time? Right. You know what I mean? But also, if you just mention it, saying it out loud, just that takes the scary part of it.
I had the sentence, my husband doesn't love him right.
Right. What does that mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, once I said it, I realized it was outrageous.
It was silly. Yeah.
It was silly. He doesn't love him the same way I do.
Right.
He doesn't sit around and sing to him and touch his toes. You know, he throws him up in the air and he dances with him and
turns him upside down, dangles him back.
I didn't like it.
Yeah.
I thought that meant he didn't love him because he was just like messing with him.
Right. Well, and now we're talking about manuals. You're hitting like all the things, Jess. Now you're talking about manuals, which I just talked to Dad about this afternoon, actually. Everybody has a different manual. And the way that Chris shows love is different from the way that you show love. And that doesn't mean that Chris doesn't love Avery.
No, in fact, having different kinds of grown-ups around is wonderful.
Yes!
Being raised solely by me is a very scary prospect.
That doesn't serve you. Don't do that.
Think of the neuroses he'd have.
If it was just Jess.
Right?
Oh, thank God he's a life coach and nurse for that. Oh, no. Do you need to go? We can wrap this up if you want to go.
No, I'm good.
Do you want to breastfeed? Because we are also...
Yeah, I'm just going to lift you up a little bit.
Okay. Oh my God, my sister is going to be breastfeeding on Facebook Live.
If you can see anything, nipple wise, please let me know so I can raise the camera up a little further.
I'll let you know. I can't see anything past like where your shirt starts.
Perfect.
So you're good for right now. But this is
Great.
such a perfect example of what I want to do. We are now breastfeeding live on Facebook. What? Breastfeeding is fine. You can do it in public. You can do it whenever you want to. And also, you don't have to. There are no rules. You get to make them up. Okay, so Jess.
Yeah.
I want to talk about your thought. I want to coach you a little bit on the thought that you told me about yesterday, if you're comfortable with that. Will you tell everybody what your thought is recently?
Oh, yeah. I've tried not to think about it so this could be as fresh as possible.
Okay.
So I have a belief, I'm just going to call it a belief at this point.
Great.
I have a belief that Avery will, so this is Avery, that he will hate me, or that he'll not respect me, or whatever it is, as a result of how I treat his brothers.
Okay.
So his brothers are my stepchildren. So I love them. I do. I'm not, I'm a good stepmom. That sentence is hard, but
you said it out loud.
I'm here, I show up, we hang out, like it's a good, healthy, normal relationship, but I'm not their mom. I don't want to kiss their toes and read them bedtime stories and make them feel better when they're hurt. I just don't feel that way. I do it. I go through some of those motions that, if they're hurt or not feeling well, I'll step up. But it doesn't come naturally to me. I feel differently about them as stepkids than I do about my baby.
Pause. The people who are watching this need to understand that this is a narrative, and it's fine. It's one we're working on, but what's really important to acknowledge is from the outside world, Jessie literally single-handedly saved these children. The three of them were in danger with their mother, and am I allowed to say that?
Yeah.
And
it's true.
And so they went to court and they said these children are in danger. They're dirty and they're not going to school, and we need to take over. And that's why she got them 9 days before she got married, because that was a decision that she and Chris made. Because Chris was in the financial position, having married Jessie, or about to marry Jessie, to be able to take this on, which he wouldn't have been in.
He would have done it before, I think, but he couldn't do it.
Yes, he needed you. And the two of you did it together beautifully and gracefully, and these children are flourishing. So I don't want the narrative to be yours. We'll work on your narrative. But in the meantime, just know that this is angelic, is how we describe what's happened. And we're trying to work on that with Jess. Continue.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
So my fear is that Avery will see and will feel the difference between how I feel about him and how I feel about them.
Yes.
And will think, you're a bad mom. This is unfair. You're a bully. I don't know. My brothers deserve better than this.
And that makes sense. My brothers deserve better, so they'll be mad at you. But what I think is interesting to note is the sentence, because I love him, he will be mad. Or he will be hurt. Because when you love something, you take better care of it, not worse.
Well, because I take better care of him.
Right.
But I'm worried that he'll see the difference.
And what would he
He'll say, she loves me so much more than she loves Gunnar. She's evil.
Because he's the favorite?
Yeah.
Would you identify yourself as a favorite?
I did, certainly growing up.
And how did that feel?
I felt like you were a screw up.
So that you weren't mad at mom and dad.
Nope.
No, in fact, what it taught you is, I'm better.
It's true.
Which is the point. That's what I want everyone to think. Yes, you have value. Yes, you're awesome. Yeah. Forget what it did to me. I mean, you're right. You were absolutely the favorite child. for sure. I made things a little difficult. But that's
Well,
mindset.
I also watched you.
Right.
And so I thought, this behavior is making mom mad. I'm never going to do that.
Right.
And luckily, my big sister did everything possible that could have made mom mad. So I knew what I was working towards.
Just don't do that. And
There
mom
was-
won't be
yeah.
mad.
There was no stone left unturned in the what's going to piss our parents off department. So I was good.
Because I just did it all.
Yeah.
And look at me now. Oh my God. Okay, so let's focus on that for just a couple minutes. Like, could you wrap your brain around how feeling like the favorite child could actually benefit you?
Yes.
And maybe spend some time just like letting your brain break. Because what happens when you believe two things at the exact same time is your brain just goes back and forth and back and forth. It's called mental elasticity, because you believe both. I believe, I've written about this, I believe that you should be quiet when people are sleeping. And I also believe that I do not deserve that treatment because I sleep during the day.
Right.
And so I believe both those things. And so when Tyler wakes me up playing his game in the hall next to me, I'm angry because my brain is going, this doesn't make sense. We're supposed to be quiet, but also it's daytime.
Mm-hmm.
So like, could you spend some time there? That's like just thinking about the benefits of being the favorite child. Or again, these are circumstances. I believe that if we asked mom and dad, that they would probably say, I did not have a favorite child.
Yeah.
You're in a very unique situation because you have 3 children that are not your blood.
Right.
And that just changes the dynamics, and that's not a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what if you showed...
And like you were saying, we rescued them.
Yes.
And so they arrived. They're very difficult children.
Yes.
The 7-year-old wasn't potty trained when we got custody.
Right.
So it's been an uphill battle for sure.
And doesn't speak. Is nonverbal.
And has never spoken.
Right. So this is important to acknowledge. This is really hard. And the more that you look at it and the more you talk about it and you say those scary sentences, the better off you'll be.
Okay.
So
I'll try it.
spend some time with that. Just thinking about what your thoughts were growing up as the favorite.
Yeah.
Maybe write that down in a journal. Like,
okay.
Just some thoughts. I know I've said before, like when I wrote down my body is disgusting and I looked at it on a piece of paper, I was like, nope, unacceptable. And so sometimes, but that's been in my head for 30 years.
Right.
But when you write it down on a piece of paper and you look at it and you're like, oh God.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that's what was happening.
Right.
That's called taking something that's unconscious and bringing it to the conscious. It's really, really important to do that. So I would love it if you would just sit down and just write some thoughts that you have about what it means to be the favorite child. And maybe some thoughts you have about me, maybe some thoughts you have about you, maybe some thoughts you have about our parents. But get really, really curious, because that's the key to solving this Avery Hunter Gunner Forrest problem.
Okay.
Is that your thoughts are leading your feelings and your actions, but your thoughts aren't Hunter's thoughts. You know?
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have the same thoughts as you. His thought is, I used to be dirty and now I'm clean.
Right.
I used to not have clothing and now I don't have to worry about anything.
Mm-hmm.
You know? That's something to acknowledge. Acknowledge your wins. Jess.
Okay.
I'm really proud of you, and I think that you're doing amazing, amazing things. And I'm just going to say this one more time. Hold on, Trevor's talking to us. There are a ton of other women out there that wouldn't have the balls to deal with the situation like the one you're in, but the fact that you do and are doing it makes you that much stronger as a person and a mother. Never forget that. Look at that, Jess.
Thanks, Trevor.
Trevor Boone. He's in my house.
Oh,
I know. He's my
I love Trevor.
He said yesterday on Zoom, he was like live in front of one person in the audience. And that's what I've got. I've got my first audience member here in the studio.
Yep.
So Jess, just to sum up, you're doing awesome stuff. And the more that you believe that, the better you will take care of your family. So it's okay to acknowledge that you're doing amazing things. And I'm just going to say this one more time. Read Dad's wedding speech every day.
I hung it up.
Okay. Have you read it?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. That's good.
Yeah.
It's a really great speech. Our dad wrote a speech for her wedding talking about this exact thing and like how angelic she is and how wonderful what they're doing for these kids is. And, you know, my father's mother was an educator. And so he cares so much about these children and what they are getting. And he sees it so much in what you guys are doing. And I think you just read that every day. It's like my voicemail from Mike. You know, I will have that from forever that I get to listen to when I'm like, am I doing a good job? And then I hear Mike, someone I love very much, say, you've changed my life. You know?
This shit works.
This shit works, man.
I love that.
All right, Jess, I'm going to let you go. Thank you for being the second ever guest on Safe Space from Colorado. This is amazing. Right. And Avery made his debut.
As did breastfeeding.
Yeah, of course. So. Of course, yeah. So much happened today. All right, I'm going to have, you can exit you out, yes? I'm going to have you do that, but I love you very much and I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being on today.
I love you too. Bye.
Bye. All right, so I think that's enough. It's been 42 minutes. I don't want to ask too much of the audience and Trevor. But I think this was a great episode. I have a drawing to do for a free hour of coaching for the people who watched it live last week or for people who shared it throughout the week. It was supposed to be on my table, and in the excitement of the episode and having Trevor here, I forgot. So I will do the drawing as soon as this is over, and I'll announce it in a thing. So I hope that you learned something. I hope you had fun. I hope you accept who you are always, because it's always better. I know that sounds like hippy dippy, but it's true. It's true. If you take better care of yourself, you take better care of other people. I promise. I promise. I'm going to show you proof of it as we keep going. All right. Thanks for watching. Love ya. Mwah.